Hello everyone. I'm going to introduce you to my solution to the time system. Now, as of recording, the current date is October 19th, 2025, which is sometimes written as shown below. But there are three anomalies of the time system. The first one is century numbering. So obviously, this current century that we are in is the 21st century. But if you think about it, it would make more sense if it was the 20th century. Because if you look at the first two digits of the year, it is 20 instead of 21. So why is it the 20th century? And you can extend this to decades, where it's the 203rd decade instead of the 202nd, and it's the third millennium. So why is it the 21st century instead of the 21st century? That's the first anomaly. The second one is century definitions. So let's take the year 2000, for example. It might seem like it's part of the 21st century. It seems like it's the first year of the 21st century because it begins with those digits 20. Versus 1999 seems like the last year of the 20th century. But in fact, 2000 is actually part of the 20th century, and 2001 is the first year of the 21st century. So you can see here, the 19th century was 1801 to 1900. The 20th century was 1901 to 2000. And the 21st century is 2001 to the inevitable end of the world in 2027. So, you can think of another way of defining. If you see back here, the 20th century is 1901 to 2000, but the 1900s is 1900 to 1999. So why don't the 1900s match with the 20th century? That's anomaly number 2. Now, the third anomaly is year 0. So you can use either BC, BCE for this, or AD/CE. But either way, you can see 2 BC, then 1 BC, then 0, then 81, then 82. That's the system that would make sense, except year 0 doesn't even exist. So, for example, this makes calculations before this mythical non-existent year 0 and after it a bit complicated. For example, if you're trying to find the number of years between 27 BC and AD 14, you would think it's 41, but in reality it's 40. Because by basic subtraction it would be 41, but because there's no year 0, you have to make sure you left that out of the calculation, so it's actually 40. All right. Now here's an insight. You can see these definitions of years where there's 2 BC, then 1 BC, then 81, then 82. So you're familiar now that there's nothing in between 1 BC and 81. But if you see on the left, there are these points that define what the beginning and end of a year is. For example, the year AD 1 started on January 1st, AD 1, and then ended on January 1st, AD 2, versus 1 BC started on the first day of 1 BC and ended on the first day of 1 AD. So, why don't we just abstract these dates into points? So, there's year 1, which began on point 0 and ended on point 1, and 2 BC began on point -2 and ended on point -1. So then, why don't we represent it in the decimal way, where there's a year and then a decimal point after that that represents the specific date? So for example, dates between point 0 and point 1 would be read as 0 point something something something. Now, I know this looks confusing because -0 and 0 are the same, but it's the specific date that matters here. But the point 0 is right there in the middle. So this should standardize the system. Now, I know how back here I said that there would be some string of numbers following the decimal point. But what would they be? Well, you can use numbers to represent months. For example, typically 1 is January, 2 is February, and 12 is December. There's a few months in between there. Now, October would be the 10th month, except we want to use a based 0 system to fit with our based 0 year system. So instead, 0 should be January, 1 should be February, and 11 should be December. Now, days, the same thing. Previously, October would be October 1st to October 31st. But now, remember, October used to be 10, now it's 9. So now it's 9.0, because it's a 0-based system, to 9.30. Now, there's a lot of argument over which system is better. Month, day, year, which is the American system, and day, month, year, which is the European system. But I propose another one. I think this one's used in East Asia. Year, month, day, except punctuated by decimal points to show that we're using a decimal-inspired system. So, October 19th, 2025, the date of recording, is 2024.09.18. And if we want to include time, we can use the 24-hour clock, which already follows this based 0 infrastructure. For example, 5:35 p.m. on today would be represented as 2024.09.18.17 represents 5 p.m., since you just add 12 to get from a.m. to p.m., and then 35 for the minute number. Thank you for watching, and the next podcast for the TED universe, the next episode will be on Mario lore and how the Mario movie is actually canon, and it will premiere on 2024.09.21.16.00, aka 4 p.m. this Wednesday. Be there or be square. Thank you for watching.